Jesus needs followers, not fans. Grace and peace, everybody. Welcome to Sabbath School Study Group. This is part number 5 of our 5-part series, Day in the Ministry of Jesus. We're working our way back to the start of this time, going back to where Jesus calls his disciples, who eventually become apostles. But they didn't start as apostles or disciples. They were fishermen. These are fishermen before they became followers. Remember, we talked about the relationship between holiness and humility. Look at what he's looking for when he goes to call his own. But as we wrap up this series, we really appreciate you watching. Do us a favor, subscribe to the channel. Make sure you pass this video on to someone else, and you help others find the video by hitting the like button. And then visit us online at changeministry.org. There is a page, changeministry.org/health, where all of the cooking recipes and all the health advice that we could possibly share, it's all there online. You can watch those videos and be encouraged and be healthy, because that's God's desire for all his children. Jesus needing followers. It is not that Jesus needs followers to validate his ministry. The point is that Jesus wants to work with others in his ministry. He wants us to share the yoke, to share the burden, but also to share the blessing and to share the glory that comes from being obedient to God. When he was going about looking for who he could hire, he could have gone to the synagogue. He could have gone to the synagogue school. He could have gone to the university. But he couldn't go to the seminary because they wouldn't have had him. They would not have opened the door. They wouldn't have given him the time of day because of their pride. Do we think that pride is any less of a barrier today than it was yesterday? So what's the workaround? Well, what Jesus does is, in verse 16, Jesus was walking by the Sea of Galilee, and he saw Simon and Andrew, his brother, casting a net into the sea, for they were fishers. And Jesus said unto them, Come ye after me, and I will make you to become fishers of men. We can go into a whole lot of contemplation as to what was it about these guys that drew Jesus to them. And you really don't have to look far. The answer is in the next verse. It says in verse 18, and straightway they forsook their nets and followed Jesus. Straightway. Remember, we talked about that. The idea of the anon, or immediacy, the space between knowing and belief. Their synapse was very, very close. It was very, very small. It did not have this huge gap where all this self could get in the way and all this doubt could get in the way and all this skepticism could get into the way of a simple childlike faith. Because remember, all this was done before all the miracles we've looked at in the study thus far. They knew enough. And what they knew was enough to get them to believe. And how do we know they believed? Their actions. How they believed is how they be living. They left what they were doing and started following Jesus. Not just them. Verse 19 says, and when Jesus had gone a little further thence, he saw James, the son of Zebedee, and John, his brother, who also were in the ship mending their nets. And straightway he called them, and they left their father Zebedee in the ship with the hired servants and went after him. They left their father. They left what they had customarily done. They left the tradition of their trade, and it was nothing wrong in it. And sometimes we think when God is calling us, he's always calling us out of bad or out of wrong. He's not just always calling us out of sin, but he's always calling us up to him. He's calling us into a closer relationship. He's calling us into the next stage of what he's already started. So whether it's being called from sin or being called from one stage of ministry to another, his call is always looking for that humble heart, for the person who has the tiniest gap between what they know and what they believe, and who is humble enough to say, I know enough to follow him. It's no different, not just in terms of being called to do a job. It's when he's calling us out of sin, when he's calling us up to say, I need you to turn that off, or I need you to turn this way, or I need you to put this on, or I need you to stop putting this in. When he says it, just like they immediately responded, he knew that if they would do this with this sense of obedience, which led to this sense of immediacy, there was no limit to what they could do. Jesus needs followers, not fans. People who are willing to not just cheer for him, but who choose him when nobody's looking. That's what it means to be a Christian. And that's the kind of faith that God will always honor. He has shown it to us so that we can shine, so that we can now be evidence that he told me this, he told me that, he took me here, he took me there. And I am where I am because of what he has done. Followers, not fans. They do more than call on his name. Followers obey just the same.